India has decided a 10-year-old girl raped by her stepfather will be allowed an abortion. The mutiny over pay by members of the army in Ivory Coast is apparently over. Is an advertisement about childhood bereavement an appropriate way to sell hamburgers? And they don't even match, but Apollo and Artemis are expected to become the world's most expensive earrings.
On the View this week, people have almost been gasping when they see them.
What are you targeting?
Well, the estimate is in excess of $50 million for the pair. 50 to 70 million, yeah.
You're listening to the BBC World Service.
Hello, I'm Jerry Smith with the BBC News. President Trump has admitted discussing matters related to terrorism and airline safety during a meeting with the Russian Foreign Minister. Mr. Trump's response on Twitter follows US media reports that he'd compromised highly classified intelligence. Jane O'Brien reports from Washington.
Once again, the White House seems to be contradicting itself over what President Trump said and why. Senior officials have denied reports that he discussed intelligence methods or gave visiting Russian diplomats the source of highly sensitive and classified information during a closed-door meeting, even though it's claimed they were concerned enough to contact the CIA and National Security Agency to warn them of the possible consequences of some of his comments. But now President Trump himself has confirmed he did say something, that he wanted to share with Russia facts pertaining to terrorism and airline flight safety. His alleged disclosures are not illegal, but they are being seen as a breach of trust with the intelligence community in the US and abroad.
Soldiers in Ivory Coast have agreed to a government deal to end an army revolt. They've been told they'll receive more than $8,000 immediately. The troops have been firing in the air and setting up roadblocks around the country since Friday. Here's Tamasin Ford.
These were the men who fought for now President Alassane Ouattara during the civil crisis in 2011, when former President Laurent Gbagbo refused to step down. They also occupied the north of the country for nearly 10 years before that. They want to be reintegrated into the army and say they're due around $30,000 in bonuses each. This follows the army mutiny in January, when nearly 9,000 men brought the country to a halt. They were given bonuses to get back to work. Now these former fighters want the same.
The European Union's top court has ruled that all member states and their regional parliaments need to give their assent to a new trade deal with Singapore, a ruling that could set a template for any future agreements. The court ruled that two key aspects of the trade deal fell outside the competence of the EU. A panel of doctors in India has decided to grant an abortion to a 10-year-old girl who became pregnant after being repeatedly raped. She's reported to be about 20 weeks pregnant. The doctors in Rohtak, near Delhi, have been asked to make the decision by a court. From Delhi, here's Geeta Pandey.
The pregnancy came to light last week when the 10-year-old's mother, who works as a domestic helper, suspected that her child was pregnant and took her to see a doctor. The girl has alleged that she was repeatedly raped by her stepfather, who warned her not to say anything. He's now under arrest. According to a government study, India is home to the highest number of sexually abused children in the world.
Geeta Pandey reporting. World news from the BBC. The Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has written to the heads of the armed forces, the police and the intelligence services to say that the use of torture is unnecessary and wrong. It comes after widespread media reports alleging that several people suspected to be connected to the murder of a police spokesman have been tortured. 3 French gay rights organizations have accused the Russian Republic of Chechnya of a policy of genocide towards homosexuals in a complaint filed at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Here's Mike Sanders.
Reports of arbitrary arrests of gay men first surfaced last month in the Russian newspaper Novaya Gazeta. Now, 3 French associations have accused the Chechen president Ramzan Kadyrov of instigating a wave of persecution. They've highlighted the case of a 17-year-old gay man allegedly thrown to his death from a 9th-floor window by an uncle supposedly anxious to salvage the family's honor. The groups have rejected Russia's internal investigation and want the International Criminal Court to start work before Russia leaves it in November. President Kadyrov says there are no gays in Chechnya.
The leader of Britain's main opposition Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, has unveiled his party's manifesto ahead of next month's general election. Mr Corbyn promised to reverse 7 years of austerity with a radical and responsible plan for a government that served the many and not the few. He said increased spending would be financed by substantially increasing the tax rate for higher incomes. Police in Kandahar in southern Afghanistan say they've detained an Iranian man who they suspect was spying on behalf of Taliban militants. A spokesman told the BBC they found photos on his phone which they believed he was planning to show the Taliban to help them prepare for a future attack. Traditionally, Shiite Iran has been an enemy of the Sunni Taliban. BBC News.